After 5 years of successfully conquering the Yandere villain, he fell in love with the heroine again. I went from being the little sidekick he despised to becoming his wife. I circled around him with unshakable devotion for 20 years, only to fail in the end. When I saw him once again staring blankly at the heroine, I suddenly felt it was meaningless. I loosened my grip on his hand and said casually, "Let's divorce." He withdrew his gaze and sneered at me with disdain. "Fine." He thought it wouldn't take long before I, like countless times before, would break down crying and beg for his forgiveness. It wasn't until 6 months later that he panicked and realized. This time, I was serious. Chapter 1. I transmigrated into a book and was tasked by the system to conquer the obsessive villain of a romance story. He was born with heterochromatic eyes. When he was bullied mercilessly in the orphanage, I stood up for him, fought the toughest battles, and walked through the blood and fire that, in the original book, would have turned him into a mafia boss. I even took care of the heroine's postpartum recovery after he, in a fit of madness, kidnapped her right after she gave birth. Finally, when I shielded him from the male lead's fatal bullet and was on the brink of death myself, he fell madly in love with me. On the day he proposed, I completed my mission, and the system unbound me. For 5 years we were inseparable. But as passion faded, life turned tasteless like plain water. He grew bored, longing for the thrill he once had. "Tell Charles, I'll hand over the F-City project, as long as his wife takes me off her blacklist." The secretary looked nervously at me standing at the door. "Madam, will mind, right?" He paused for a moment, then replied impatiently, "If I'd known I'd still be under her control after marriage, I wouldn't have married at all." I stood at the doorway, chilled from head to toe. Chapter 2. The secretary didn't dare speak again. Santiago seemed to sense something. He raised his head and met my gaze. A flicker of panic passed through those usually arrogant eyes before he quickly suppressed it. "Daisy, you know what I mean. I'm avenging you." Then, he showed me a gentle, expectant smile. That contrasting smile knocked the breath out of me. I used to describe his smile as a master throwing a frisbee far away, then waiting expectantly for the dog to run after it and bring it back. He hadn't smiled at me like that in 5 years. The original author described Santiago as a mischievous troublemaker. 10 years after meeting him, I thought the author's view of Santiago was still far too kind. I knew Santiago better than he knew himself. An abused and abandoned childhood forged his dark, twisted nature. The cruelest yet most sincere bullying among the orphanage children shattered his worldview completely. His proud and untamed spirit couldn't bear being hurt or controlled. As he grew, his heart became more and more warped, even taking pleasure in hurting others. He trusted no one, except for the heroine, who had once given him a single smile in his childhood. When he met her again as an adult, she was already in love with the male lead, so he used my love for him to force me to drive a wedge between them. But the heroine loved the male lead deeply, so he locked her in a basement, begging her with tyrannical desperation to look at him. When she once again threw herself into the male lead's arms without hesitation, he finally lost his mind, holding to the villain's credo of "If I can't have you, I'll destroy you." He tried to take her down with him, but he failed. The male lead shot him without hesitation. I blocked the bullet for him. He went mad again. I risked my life to save him, which triggered his addiction to reckless behavior. So he risked everything to treat me well for 5 years. The little prince said, "It's the time you spend on your rose that makes your rose so important." For 5 years, he poured endless time and energy into me. I had no doubt he once truly loved me, but over 5 years, my life-risking buff had been worn down by everyday trivialities. He got bored, and began to remember the heroine he could never forget. "5 years ago they hurt you. I'll make them pay." His tone was calm, but those beautiful heterochromatic eyes gleamed, as if picturing something that excited him. I nodded. "I believe you." Of course I believed. He would definitely punish the heroine miserably in the basement. The watch on my wrist vibrated slightly. Santiago's gaze flicked over. I turned my body subtly to block it. Chapter 3. 5 years of marriage had still left some traces. As if to make up for what he'd said wrong during the day, Santiago told me there'd be a surprise for me that evening. I was somewhat looking forward to it. Santiago's surprises were always unpredictable. He once set the bedroom on fire. When I was about to jump out the window to escape, he pressed a gun to my head, dragged me back into the flames, and the next second, the room was intact, with a shower of rose petals falling from the ceiling. He once lit fireworks all over the city, spelling out our names, from midnight until dawn, swearing the entire city would witness our love. I got home early, but the house was silent. I knew this surprise must be extraordinary. Voices floated down from upstairs. I crept up toward the study where the sound came from. Through the crack of the door, I could see two figures close together. Santiago's sexy baritone came out. Now it seems you're far worse than she is. Didn't Charles give you money for skincare? Why do you look so old? Then why did you ask me to come? Just to humiliate me? The woman's voice was slightly choked. Congratulations. This time you've won. Shadows shifted through the crack as someone moved. Santiago's voice suddenly turned gentle, but you also have something she doesn't. At least, you don't have me in your heart. I pushed the study door open. Santiago had the woman pinned to the desk, his hand raised to wipe her tears. He looked at me, eyebrows slightly raised, as if not surprised at all. I smiled sweetly. Santiago. What a big surprise. The woman turned her face toward me in shock. Her face was haggard, yet traces of her former beauty still showed. It took me a long time to recognize her. The heroine, Rachel. She'd aged a lot over the past 5 years. A face full of bitterness. It seemed the male and female lead's married life wasn't so happy either. She pushed Santiago away, panicked, like a child caught doing something wrong. Daisy. She couldn't defend herself and finally lowered her head, covering her mouth as she ran out. I finally understood why heroines in romance novels never explain misunderstandings. In such obvious situations, only side characters insist on explaining. I walked to the boss chair behind the desk, sat down, and looked at Santiago with a scrutinizing gaze. He calmly took a camcorder from a hidden corner of the bookshelf and played the footage we had just seen. Then he said to me, Daisy, tell me, if Charles saw this video, what kind of expression would he have? I curved my lips, amused. Yes. Santiago would explain. Chapter 4. 5 years ago, when Santiago proposed to me, my mission to conquer him was complete. Before the system unbound me, it told me that the male and female lead story had reached its finale. The book was finished. This world was no longer driven by plot. It would develop according to its own rules, like the earth I once came from. From then on, I could choose my own path. Back then, looking at Santiago kneeling on one knee, holding a ring, his gaze so tender it could melt me, I asked him a question. If you were the big villain in a romance novel, your true nature full of evil deeds, ruthless in achieving your goals, instinctively snatching what you want from the heroine, and I'm not the heroine, would you still love me? Santiago's expression changed. He lowered his head, slowly rising, the hand holding the ring lowering until it nearly brushed the gun under his coat. Santiago was angry. After all, I'd used him as the example. Even a fool could see I was describing him. I'd spoken the truth, but it was the first time anyone had stripped his true face bare. Given the severity of his issues, not shooting me on the spot really was a sign of madness. Although I'd prepared and worn a bulletproof vest, my palms were sweating with nerves. He didn't draw his gun. Instead, he grabbed my hand, forcefully slid the ring onto my finger. Smiling, he pulled me by the waist and, under the quiet moonlight, said each word firmly. I will defy my nature, go against my instincts, and love you forever. Chapter 5. That night, I stared at the moon outside the window and unknowingly drifted off in thought. Santiago noticed something was wrong. He pinched my chin, forcing me to turn back and meet his eyes. Distracted? Who are you thinking about? My face stayed calm. Suddenly, I said, I was thinking about your Rachel. Santiago froze. Then his expression darkened. He rolled out of bed. After a moment of silence, I asked, Rachel hasn't been doing well these past 5 years, has she? As if prepared, he quickly cut me off. Don't guess randomly. I haven't paid any attention to her for 5 years. Is that answer good enough for you? These 5 years, don't you know how much I've loved you? He deliberately emphasized the word love, making it sound like it carried another meaning. I didn't want to say more. I took off my watch, closed my eyes, and got ready to sleep. He was slightly angry. Daisy, are you doubting me? Santiago, am not the kind of man who sneaks around in the shadows. Really? I asked myself silently. The reason villains can never surpass protagonists is this. Villains always keep a shred of integrity, as if it were their proof of wanting to be righteous, unable to be bad to the very end, unable to betray even themselves. They can never do things perfectly. Chapter 6. Rachel caught a cold and was hospitalized. By the time Charles and I arrived, Santiago had already been tending to her day and night for 2 whole days without changing clothes. It wasn't that I was overly caring, nor that Charles was too indifferent. Ever since Rachel had come looking for Santiago that day, he handed over the FCD project, something I had fought hard to secure, to Charles's MD group. While I was coordinating with MD group, my resentment was so strong no one could handle it. MD group had been declining for 5 years, and Charles almost always made the wrong choice at every critical decision. The financing for the FCD project was their last chance to turn things around. If they missed it, their capital chain would break, MD Group would go bankrupt, and Charles would be left with billions in debt. Because of this, Charles had no choice but to show up in person for the handover with me. I deliberately made things difficult, keeping him trapped with me at the FCD site, busy to the point of exhaustion. If I hadn't accidentally seen a message that Santiago wasn't coming home at night, Charles might still not know his wife had been in a car accident, and that the man who once coveted her had been personally caring for her for 2 days. Inside the hospital room, Santiago held a bowl of porridge, blowing it cool before feeding it to Rachel. The careful way he moved made it look like he was caring for a porcelain doll. Rachel's eyes instantly filled with tears. With nostalgia, she murmured, "Charles once cooked porridge for me too." Then, choking up, she said to Santiago, "Didn't you despise me? Why are you being so kind to me now? Don't worry about me. I'm not worth it. Just go." Santiago pulled Rachel into his arms, ignoring her struggles, gripping both her hands with domineering force. Rachel gave up resisting, leaned into his chest, and sobbed. Santiago rested his chin on her head, sighing softly. "Are you trying to kill me? Stop crying. It makes my heart ache." Outside the ward, Charles's fists clenched so tightly his knuckles turned white. He kicked the door open and stormed inside. Startled by the noise, Rachel immediately pulled away from Santiago. When she saw Charles, her face lit up with relief, and she anxiously tried to explain. "Charles, let me explain." Charles sneered. "Go on then." Rachel bit her lip, tears streaming down her face, but she wouldn't explain. Instead, she cried pitifully. Santiago remained calm, shielding Rachel behind him, and stared coldly at Charles. "Charles, have you forgotten what I told you? If you ever dared to treat Rachel badly, I would." Then, seeing me behind Charles, Santiago's words stuck in his throat. I knew what he was about to say. If Charles treated Rachel badly, Santiago would take her away. Santiago glanced at me, then at Charles. Seeing us both worn down, disheveled, he instantly understood the situation. His face darkened. He strode over, grabbed me, and squeezed my hand so hard it hurt. "Santiago, you're hurting me." I frowned and tried to shake him off. I couldn't, but the pressure on my hand eased slightly. Rachel lifted her head slightly, glancing at Santiago and me holding hands. Disappointment flickered in her eyes before she lowered her head again, looking even more aggrieved. Santiago saw it. His brows furrowed faintly. "Charles, take care of yourself. We'll meet again." Leaving his threat behind, he dragged me away with him. Charles's Adam's apple bobbed, his eyes burning with fury as he stared at the back of Santiago's head. Yet in the end, he said nothing. Of course, he didn't dare. Chapter 7. The drive home was silent. When we arrived, Santiago parked the car but didn't get out or unlock it. Trapped inside, I turned to him in confusion. "At the hospital, why did you say those things?" He lit a cigarette, took a deep drag, then said, "Daisy, I only helped Rachel to repay the kindness from childhood. Don't overthink it. If you have any tricks, direct them at me. Don't trouble Rachel." I was stunned for a long while before realizing, He thought that when I said he was hurting me in the hospital, it was all an act, something I staged for Rachel to see, so she'd notice our tightly held hands and feel jealous. I couldn't help but laugh. Santiago, hugging another man's wife is how you avenge me. Cheating with Rachel is your revenge against Charles? Santiago hadn't expected me to be so sharp. He stared at me for a while, then chuckled. Daisy, you're still so adorable when you get jealous. I gave him a cold glance. Before, I was never sure of Santiago's intentions. Was he reliving the thrill of the past through Rachel, or was it simply leftover feelings for her? Now I understood, he wanted both. The thrill of the past, Rachel, and me, forever by his side, fighting and getting jealous for him. Santiago, do you remember what I said when you proposed? He replied, I remember. I even said I would love you forever. I won't go back on that. I shook my head. I meant the question I asked you. If you were the villain in a novel, your instinct was to love the heroine, and I was only the side character, what would you do? He paused, then gave a helpless laugh. Daisy, stop reading such brainless novels. But as he laughed, his eyes drifted away. From the moment he learned how to be gentle with me, he also picked up another skill, changing the subject. Whenever he thought the truth would upset me, he'd deflect. And that was the very answer we both already knew. I thought, perhaps it was time to let go. Chapter 8. My assistant said that after we left, Charles's eyes were bloodshot as he grabbed Rachel by the neck, growling, Woman, you've crossed me. Rachel's makeup was smeared from tears. She stared at Charles with stubborn yet fragile eyes, refusing to explain. The scene was familiar. I remembered when I was still trying to conquer Santiago. I had witnessed something similar. Rachel once cooked for Charles while cutting vegetables. She accidentally cut her finger, drawing a thin line of blood. Charles halted his international conference, rushed home, scooped up Rachel's already scabbed hand, and brought her to the hospital to be admitted. At the same hospital, Santiago was being treated after breaking 10 ribs in a fight. When he saw Rachel, he instantly went crazy, ripping out his four and charging into her room to embrace her, as if he wanted to fuse her into his very bones. That scene was witnessed by Charles, who had just arrived with porridge he cooked himself. He stormed in and caught them red-handed. Santiago, cocky as always, gave Charles a deliberately provocative look. I had to stand between them, or they would have fought right there. After I dragged Santiago away, Charles grabbed Rachel by the throat. Passing nurses didn't dare interfere. They pretended not to see and quickly fled. Later, Rachel was so terrified by Charles that she begged Santiago to take her away, and then Santiago locked her in the basement. I could already guess how the rest of the story went. Charles forcing kisses on Rachel, repeating over and over, "You are mine." But I didn't interrupt my assistant, who was happily gossiping. His face was animated as he continued. When the nurse came for rounds and saw that scene, she thought Charles was abusing Rachel and called the police right away. Charles got arrested in no time. I raised my brows, finally intrigued. And then? What do you mean and then? That Chairman Charles is still sitting in a cell right now. Rachel didn't explain for him? That woman just bit her lip and cried her eyes out. You should have seen how messy it was. I stood up, face dark. My assistant, still gesturing dramatically, froze in fright. Boss lady, you. I cut him off. Go bail Charles out. Chapter 9. When Charles came out, the once immaculate suit, without a single wrinkle in the past, was now crumpled, and his perfectly groomed hair had been shaved into a buzz cut. He got into the car with a dark face. When he noticed my gaze on top of his head, his face grew even darker. Why is it you? Your wife didn't say a word to help you, so the boss lady had to come get you out herself. My assistant, sitting in the driver's seat, answered quickly. The heavy accent made Charles frown with disdain, but his eyes still lit up. Why did you come to save me? Do you like me? Seeing my eyes widen slightly, he thought he had struck a nerve. No wonder you went out of your way back then to target Rachel. So that's it. Don't think saving me will make me see you differently. Remember this, you're not even worth a single strand of Rachel's hair. Drive to the hospital. He crossed his legs, placed his hands naturally on both armrests, and narrowed his eyes in comfort, like a king on his throne. My assistant's fists clenched tightly on the handbrake. I smiled at him and said, Diego, to the F-City project site. He pressed the brake, then the accelerator, and the car shot forward in an instant. Charles's eyes snapped open, finally showing a flicker of fear. It seemed his time at the F-City project had left a strong impression. He reached back to open the door, but my assistant quickly locked it. Charles turned his dark expression on me. What do you mean by this? I smiled politely. If the F-City project weren't too critical to delay, do you think I'd have bothered to save your ass? His pupils reflected my tall, imposing figure. Satisfied, I withdrew my gaze. After a long silence, he spoke, his voice filled with shock and defeat. How could it end up like this? Chapter 10. I knew what he meant. Once upon a time, he was the male lead in the book, rich, handsome, brilliant. Everyone loved him, respected him, feared him. No one dared call the police. No one dared arrest him. No one dared shave his head. Most importantly, there wasn't a woman who didn't like him, and certainly no woman who dared insult him. Back then, he could see through the market at a glance, and every decision he made brought his company great profit. But now, one wrong step led to another, and another. His company was on the brink of bankruptcy, and he was easily manipulated by others. His past glory felt like nothing more than a fleeting dream. When he woke, all that remained was the empty shell of a persona. He couldn't break free, and neither could Rachel, nor Santiago. Chapter 11. I left Charles at the F-City project site and told security to keep a tight guard. This is kidnapping, Charles shouted at me. I put on a professional smile. Working on your own project, how is that kidnapping? What kidnapper is that conscientious? Holding a knife to your throat just to hurry you up and get you working? So, what exactly do you want? For Santiago? He wanted Rachel to have a better life. So he handed the F-City project to me and made you force me to work hard. All to give Rachel a better life? Right, that must be it. He convinced himself, then looked at me with disdain and sneered. You're pathetic. Diego peered at me through the rearview mirror. I didn't change expression. Go to the hospital. In the ward, Rachel lay alone, her eyes red and puffy from crying for a long time. When she saw me enter, she hunched her shoulders in fear, then glanced toward the doorway behind me with a hint of expectation. Don't worry, neither Santiago nor Charles can come. I saw through her at once. Embarrassed, she sat up from under the blanket. Don't get me wrong, Santi and I are just ordinary friends. Her eyes reddened as she said it, looking pitiful. I didn't want to play along. I calmly lifted my small handbag. Know this brand? I asked. She looked at me suspiciously and nodded. Like it? I continued. She froze, and then her face filled with grief and indignation. Daisy, you don't have to humiliate me like this. True to a heroine's nature, either silent or stubbornly defensive, she kept her mouth shut. I blew on my palm and, without hesitation, slapped her. She was stunned, clutching her face in disbelief. You hit me? I blew on my other palm. She panicked. Are you just trying to show off the bag Santiago bought you? I slapped her again, still holding the bag, and asked, do you like it? She covered her face with both hands and sobbed, tears streaming. Daisy, I really didn't compete with you for Santiago. He said I'm not as young or pretty as you. Why can't you leave me alone? I slapped her once more. I and Charles have had it rough. We pawned the valuable things in the house to pay company debts. I have nothing left. Even Charles is tired of me. Isn't this exactly what you wanted to see? I paced my slaps carefully, measured, not excessive, and after an afternoon of it, I hadn't battered Rachel into a mess. Finally, she gave up resisting and collapsed weakly onto the bed, choking out in a hoarse voice. I like it. Chapter 12. The expected slap didn't come. Rachel looked up in disbelief. I smiled and waved the bag in front of her. You like it, right? I bought it with my own money. She was so furious she rolled her eyes and then fainted. When she woke again, I was still standing by her bed, the bag in my hand. Want it? I asked. She stared at me in terror. I blew on my palm like it was routine. She nodded frantically. Rachel, I want it. I lowered my hand, smiled, and handed the bag to her. It's yours. She took it with trembling hands. Thank you. I reached out with my slender, pale fingers. She reflexively tried to pull away, but I only patted the top of her head twice. Good girl. Her look toward me grew even more fearful. Do you know why I look younger and prettier than you? I asked. She shook her head, surprisingly curious. We were the same age, both almost 30. I hadn't changed in 5 years. She, however, had started to look a bit older. After all, she used to be the most beautiful woman in the whole book, adored by every man. Because of my face, I spent over 100 million keeping it this way. I said. Would Charles give you 100 million for upkeep? I asked. She shook her head. My smile widened. Then earn it yourself. Over the years, haven't you realized it's better to rely on yourself than on a man? A man who wants you to schmooze and win projects for him. What kind of decent person could he be? I already helped you get rid of that man. Don't you know what to do now? Rachel cried even harder but managed to say, the money he earns, it's for our children. Rachel and Charles had a son and a daughter. In the past 2 years, when Charles's company was barely holding on, he quietly moved their children and some assets overseas. An idea formed in my mind at once. Do you want a father burdened with billions in debt? Or a mother earning billions in income? Rachel froze. Sure enough, when it comes to choosing between their children and a man, no responsible mother would gamble, even if that man is the male lead. Chapter 13. After leaving the hospital, Diego looked at me with a bit of nervousness in his eyes, but he still couldn't help asking, Boss lady, you threw Chairman Charles onto the F-City site just to make him give that woman some space? I nodded. Diego was stunned. But, why? I turned to adjust Diego's collar. He stiffened all over, overwhelmed by the gesture. Diego, among all the brothers, you're the one I trust the most. I said, but I also need you to trust me. I have my reasons for doing this. Diego once saved my life when I took Charles's bullet in Santiago's place. It was Diego who quickly opened the bulletproof case and blocked it just enough so the bullet didn't pierce my lung. That was precisely why, when Charles whitewashed his image and dismissed all the brothers, I kept Diego by my side as my assistant. Diego hadn't expected me to trust him this much. His back straightened. His eyes grew determined, as if he wished that bullet had been stopped by his own body for me. Chapter 14. On my birthday, Santiago booked the most luxurious hotel in the city for my celebration. That day, besides the city's elites and the media, there were also the brothers he had dismissed when he gave up the underworld. They lined up neatly in 2 rows at the hotel entrance, blocking everyone outside until Santiago and I entered first. As soon as we stepped out of the car, the younger brothers shouted in unison, Welcome, boss. Santiago immediately understood the scene. He straightened his back, the corners of his lips lifting into that signature ruthless, playful smile from his past. With everyone's gaze fixed on him, he walked up the stairs step by step. In that moment, I felt as though I saw again the arrogant, untouchable crime lord Santiago once was. After he was ushered into the hotel, I turned to the waiting dignitaries outside, apologizing, and accompanied them inside. In the banquet hall, Santiago was the center of attention wherever he went. He seemed to have regained his confidence, his eyes bright and spirited, his charm no less than in the past. Holding my hand, he led me through the hall, toasting with everyone. All around, people admired Santiago, so young, already the richest man in our city, and with such a beautiful wife by his side. Santiago glanced at me and casually handed me a glass of wine, his arm around my waist as he exchanged pleasantries. The wives of the elites looked at me with even greater envy. The hall was full of harmony, until Rachel appeared. Chapter 15. She wore a white dress, her hair falling smoothly down her back, her skin firm and delicate. Light makeup fresh and clear, she was like a lively little white lotus. That was how Rachel looked when Santiago met her again after 10 years of growing up. With just one glance, Santiago could no longer move his eyes away. He seemed frozen in place, not even noticing when I pulled my hand out of his. Rachel also saw us. She looked in good spirits, her face carrying a constant smile. Though it stiffened for a moment when she saw me, she raised her wine glass and walked toward us. Santiago finally snapped back to his senses. He snatched the glass from her hand, flung it backward without a care, his face dark and terrifying. You're allergic to alcohol. Don't you know that? Is Charles dead? How can he let you attend an event alone? The red wine splashed onto my pale yellow evening dress, staining it a brownish yellow. The noise of the venue gradually quieted, and everyone's attention shifted toward us. It's Coke! Rachel jumped in shock, staring at my expressionless face as she cautiously explained. Following her gaze, Santiago turned around and finally noticed me standing behind him, holding the glass he had shoved into my hand. His face shifted slightly. He took the red wine from me, placed it on the nearby table, then pulled out some tissues to wipe my dress. I'm sorry. His voice was low and heavy. I was so busy I forgot. You're also allergic to alcohol. The Coke was sticky, and the more he wiped, the more it spread, polluting my dress even further. My frustration kept rising. Stop wiping. I tried to pull my dress back, but he refused to let go, stubbornly rubbing away. He was angry, maybe because of his guilty conscience. He was angry at himself. Suddenly, I snapped. Santiago, let's divorce. Chapter 16. The venue erupted in shock. Santiago froze, dropped my dress, slammed the tissues to the ground, then stood up and glared at me with a twisted smile. After a long moment, he sneered, "Fine." Then he turned and walked away. I smiled calmly, continued greeting the guests, and dutifully saw off the last table before heading home. Santiago was smoking in the living room. I bypassed him and went straight to the bedroom, taking out a long-prepared divorce agreement from my nightstand. When I handed it to him, he frowned and asked, "You've wanted to divorce me for a while now?" I shook my head. I only decided after coming back from the hospital last time. Didn't you already regret marrying me long ago? Santiago said nothing, just glanced at the divorce agreement and quickly signed it. The division of property was fair, half each. Holding the agreement, my face stayed solemn. Santiago sneered, "Daisy, don't tell me you regret it already. That would break your record for apologizing to me the fastest." His words reminded me of the past, when Santiago agreed to let me be his girlfriend, yet still brought Rachel, fresh from childbirth, back to our home. I had thrown a tantrum. He looked at me with eyes full of disgust, then turned away without a word. The system prompted me, favorability decreased. Helpless, I had chased after him to apologize, promising to help take care of Rachel, just to win back his favorability. But now, I no longer needed to conquer him. Santiago, goodbye forever. I didn't take anything. I planned to go straight to the hotel I had reserved in advance. But just as I stepped out, a sudden chill wrapped around my wrist. Looking down, I saw the silver watch I had worn had somehow turned into a pair of handcuffs. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught a pair of polished leather shoes approaching, warm breath brushing the top of my head. A gentle male voice, laced with amusement, spoke. "Long time no see, Criminal A01. I slowly raised my head, meeting a face as handsome and refined as carved jade. His eyelashes were long enough to cast shadows beneath his eyes, making every look seem affectionate. But I clearly saw the coldness in his dark pupils. I gave a bitter smile. "Long time no see. Officer, you still remember the crimes you committed, don't you?" I nodded. I remember. Chapter 17. My name is A01, and I am a death row inmate. I didn't really commit anything the world would call that big, just killed my abusive mother, and then chopped up my so-called expert father who preached that society should return to male-dominated order. Later, I turned his flesh into soup and meat dishes, and fed them to my high court fiancé, the very judge who loved to smooth things over and never allowed divorces. He ate it with oil dripping down his mouth, praising how he had never tasted such delicious meat. When I told him it was my father's flesh, he vomited furiously while cursing me as a venomous woman. TSK. Men, one moment calling you baby, the next turning their faces as if they never knew you. When trial came, it was my fiancé who presided over it. Based on his past rulings on cases where men killed women, I should have received at most life imprisonment. But that day, for some reason, he declared I was cold-hearted by nature, with severe antisocial tendencies, unchangeable, beyond reform, and sentenced me to death. I refused to accept it, appealing that human nature is good at its origin, and I wanted to enter the metaverse to prove my point. Fortunately, By 2124, the law had become quite humane. Every death row prisoner is given one chance of redemption, as long as one can make meritorious contributions inside the metaverse. The punishment can be reduced. Thus, the metaverse system pulled me into the world of a book, assigning me to conquer the villain Santiago and help cure his madness, turning him into a law-abiding citizen of good character. The time limit, 20 years in metaverse time. I had almost succeeded. A01. Santiago's reform has failed. You should come back with me. I shook my head. Officer, there are still 6 months left of the 20-year term. What if, within those months, Santiago suddenly changes? Or perhaps I achieve another merit? The officer sneered. This is nothing but your dying struggle. I replied carelessly, 1 year in the book equals 1 day outside. Then please, give me half a day more. Chapter 18. I followed the officer out of the metaverse. On the giant monitoring screen in the enforcement center, I watched Santiago's every move. When the news of my disappearance reached Santiago, he sneered, playing hard to get. Is it? Let her be in the past. No matter how I hit or cursed her, she never left me. She can't live without me. Let's see how long she can pretend this time. At first, Santiago didn't care where I went after the divorce. He began frantically pursuing Rachel, even publicly challenging Charles, declaring he would compete fairly. But Charles never responded. After all, I had confiscated his phone, forbidding him from having any entertainment outside of work. Soon, Santiago's blatant attempt to steal another man's partner caused widespread online discussion. After 5 years, the names Santiago, Rachel, and Charles once again dominated the trending topics on Weibo. All of it scolding him, but Santiago didn't care. He only enjoyed being the center of attention. During this time, Rachel and Charles never once appeared or responded. With no fresh gossip to consume, netizens began digging into Santiago's wife's identity, and they discovered his wife, me, had already been missing for over a month, since the very day of the divorce. Some kind-hearted netizens reported it to the police. When the police arrived, Santiago completely refused to cooperate. Do you know who I am? You dare investigate me? Tell Dorian to crawl here on his knees to see me. Dorian was the police chief and also Santiago's subordinate. Back then, Santiago had dominated both the underworld and high society, with everyone scrambling to be his lackey. At that time, he had the confidence to say such things. But now, the leading officer's face darkened. Chief Dorian has already fallen, exposed for corruption and shielding criminal organizations. You can go see him in the station. Santiago narrowed his eyes dangerously at the officer. You dare talk to me like that? Courting death. He shot up violently, but the police, well prepared, quickly forced him down. Hands on your head. Squat down. Pinned to the ground, struggling in humiliation. Santiago's eyes burned with disbelief. After a hard strike from a baton, he clenched his teeth, and with shame flooding his face, obediently placed his hands on his head and squatted down on the floor. Chapter 19. The police searched the house thoroughly but found no trace of my disappearance. My belongings were everywhere, every corner showing signs of my life. The surveillance cameras captured me leaving the house, and then vanished into thin air. Santiago was interrogated all night before being released. He looked somewhat dazed, like his soul had left his body. Really missing? Impossible. She must be doing this just to piss me off. But the missing person posters with my face were plastered on every street and alley. Santiago glanced at one casually, and in his confused eyes, a flicker of panic escaped. He walked home with a heavy heart, only to find Rachel waiting at the door with her assistant. Santiago's mood brightened with surprise. He quickly slipped off his wrinkled suit jacket and draped it over his arm, unbuttoned one button of his white shirt to reveal a sexy collarbone, shoved one hand into his pocket, and walked toward Rachel with an air of careless swagger. Seeing his dirty, disheveled state, Rachel couldn't help but frown. Santiago gave a nonchalant smile. Just had a fight. You good girls have never seen this before, right? Scared? Rachel sighed helplessly. I heard you tried to resist the police and got beaten? Santiago froze, as if recalling that humiliating moment. His face darkened, but soon, he chuckled again. Weren't you avoiding me? What's this now? Feeling sorry for me? Rachel looked at Santiago with an indescribable expression and couldn't help but say, Santiago, we're not young anymore. Stop playing these awkward games. The assistant beside her quickly pressed her lips together, lowered her head, and stared at her shoes, but her whole body trembled, as if she were suppressing something. Santiago's face turned pale. At that moment, he truly felt the world had changed. Things that once felt so natural and cool now seemed forced and ridiculous. When had it all begun to change? Rachel, watching Santiago's shifting expression, felt a little uneasy, but still summoned her courage to ask carefully, do you really not know where Daisy is? At Daisy's name, Santiago suddenly flared with irritation. This is her little hard-to-get trick. You've all been fooled by her. Don't worry. She'll come back to me after a while. But it's been a month. Rachel probed, searching his face. Santiago reacted instantly. You suspect I did something to Daisy? Rachel stayed silent. The answer was obvious. Santiago paused, then forced a light-hearted laugh. How could that be? I treated her so well. She loved me so much. But halfway through, he couldn't go on. He suddenly realized, wasn't he just using the excuse of treating Daisy well as a mask, all the while hurting her again and again? In the past, when Daisy was upset with him, it lasted no more than a day or two. This time, it had been over a month. His chest felt hollow, as if something vital was slipping away. A wave of panic surged through him, chilling his body to the bone. Chapter 20. Seeing him like this, Rachel said nothing more. She turned and walked away with her assistant without looking back. He opened the door in a daze, pulled a bottle of liquor from the fridge, gulped down several mouthfuls, then smashed the bottle violently against the floor. Throwing a tantrum with me, is that it? He sneered coldly, muttering to himself. Then he pulled out his phone, opened the chat window with me. The conversation was still frozen at a month ago. He kept refreshing the page, but no new messages appeared. The more he looked, the deeper his frown grew. Finally, he dialed my number. I glanced at the phone in my hand. The officer said calmly, don't worry, he won't get through. Sure enough, my phone remained silent. Meanwhile, on Santiago's side, the call only returned the busy tone of a dead number. Santiago froze. Dead number? He seemed unable to believe it. Daisy, you win. As long as you answer tonight, I'll forgive you. His voice was strained, as if lowering himself first was an unbearable humiliation. He jabbed the call button again with force, but I could see his hand trembled slightly as he held the phone. No matter how many times he called, it was destined never to connect. Half an hour later, his finger still hovered over the dial, unable to press it. The phone slipped from his hand, hitting the floor with a crack and shattering the screen. He didn't even notice. He only lowered his head and stumbled to the sofa. Collapsing down, his whole body seemed drained. He stared blankly at the spacious house. Everywhere, there were traces of Daisy. On the day of the divorce, he thought Daisy had just left in anger, since she hadn't taken any of her belongings. It was proof she would come back soon. He had always believed Daisy could never leave him. Back in the orphanage, when others mocked his heterochromatic eyes as monstrous, he too believed he was a monster. How else could he explain being abused and then abandoned by his parents? Only Rachel had ever smiled kindly at him there. But soon Rachel was adopted by a wealthy family, leaving him alone once again. He hated it, hated his eyes, hated his parents, hated the children at the orphanage, hated the heavens for being unjust. Hatred wrapped around him every day. But he was too weak to fight back. He could only endure the bullying of the older kids. One day, he caught a small frog. It was tiny and soft, completely helpless in his palm. The feeling of holding another life's fate in his hands thrilled him. He picked up a stick and pierced it through, from frogs to kittens and puppies, eventually even to children his own age. Whenever he had the chance, he found ways to inflict pain on others, until the day a little girl named Daisy arrived. The little girl's wide eyes stared straight into his mismatched ones, making him feel both ashamed and furious. Surely she thought he was a monster too? He lowered his head, trying to hide his eyes, and the hatred within them. But the girl ran right up to him, grabbed his hand, and said his eyes were beautiful, that he was the most beautiful child in the orphanage. It was the first time in Santiago's life anyone had praised him, but it scared him more than a beating. He didn't know how to handle it, so he instinctively shook her hand away and walked off. But the little girl was persistent, always trying to hold his hand, only to have him shake her off again and again. Later, the little girl helped him in fights, helped him gather allies, helped him build a company, even helped him chase after his crush, Rachel. In truth, he wanted to be close to the little girl, but pushing her away had become a habit. And he was a proud person who never knew how to lower his head to anyone. He actually didn't want to torment others. But something in him was always triggered, making him unable to quit the intoxicating thrill of controlling another's life. For 20 years, the little girl and he were inseparable, always within reach, until she had become another soul living inside him. 5 years ago, Daisy had taken a bullet for him from Charles, her life hanging by a thread. At that moment, he felt as though his soul had been torn from him. If Daisy died, he would die with her. It was only then that he realized his true feelings for Daisy. He knelt outside the operating room, begging any merciful God to spare her life, willing to sacrifice everything he had. When Daisy was saved, the overwhelming joy of losing and regaining her left him dizzy with happiness. He couldn't wait to propose, promising her he would forget the past and start over to live a good life together. In the early days of marriage, he wished he could lay all the treasures of the world at her feet. Daisy helped him run the company every day, while he did nothing but think of how to please her, coming up with new ways to surprise her. Those 5 years of marriage to Daisy were the happiest years of his life. But as passion faded bit by bit, boredom crept in. He longed again for the blade's edge, the pursuit of power and wealth, the tangled web of love and hate. He started putting on airs in front of Daisy, deliberately imitating his old domineering attitude toward her. He began once more to obsess over Rachel, once more wanting to compete with Charles. Yet somehow, everything felt different. It was as if there was no one left to play along anymore. The life of the past now seemed distant, like a brilliant dream. By a string of coincidences, they had come together, endlessly clashing, sparking conflict after conflict, and in the end always resolving misunderstandings in some unexpected way. But life now was more like waking up. The dream storylines fell apart under scrutiny, even seemed laughable at the mere thought. And yet he had been foolish enough to try and recreate them. On Daisy's birthday, with the flashy displays from his underlings, the admiring gazes of the crowd, and the youthful glow of Rachel, he thought he had returned to that old life once more. It all seemed within his grasp. When Daisy wanted a divorce, his first thought was that she was just playing a role again. He agreed, because he believed it wouldn't be long before Daisy came back to beg his forgiveness. After all, the Daisy of the past had always been like that. He had never considered that Daisy might truly leave. Now, he was finally awake, and in his torment, he realized he really was about to lose that soul named Daisy. Chapter 21. On the screen, Santiago sat on the sofa, his eyes empty as he stared ahead. Suddenly, he chuckled lowly, then burst into laughter, laughing so hard he collapsed onto the floor. A moment later, he slumped down, sobbing miserably. The officer tapped a few times on the screen, pulling a panel out from the side. It displayed Santiago's various metrics. Heartbeat value, 100%. Regret value, 100%. Reform completion, 99.9%. He raised his brows in surprise. Not bad. Looks like you might survive this. I kept my eyes on the screen in silence, neither agreeing nor denying. After the F-City project handover was completed and the funds arrived, MD Group quickly recovered, riding the momentum of this revival to attract a flood of new investments. But Santiago's company wasn't so lucky. The news of Santiago's divorce from me spread, followed immediately by the news of my disappearance. The company's stock hit the limit down floor, and one by one, major partners terminated their contracts. Rumors spread outside. Santiago, the chairman, was nothing but a nominal figurehead, a man taking a paycheck for doing nothing. Everything in the company had been built by Daisy. Investors and partners valued Daisy's abilities, not Santiago. Yet Santiago didn't care about any of that. He was like a madman, scouring the world for traces of me. When he entered the police station again, he no longer carried his former arrogance. Instead, He humbly asked the police about the progress of my missing person case. The old officer said, "If a person is alive, there will always be traces of life. If there are no traces at all, then chances are, they're gone." Santiago refused to believe it. He swore he would search the entire world to find me, and he truly did just that. In the end, the board of directors voted to dismiss Santiago. Then they held a vote to sell the company. But the overall market was bleak. No group was willing to take it on. Fortunately, MD Group reached out, stating their willingness to acquire it at market price. That day, two major events happened at MD Group. The first, Rachel, the founder of MD Group, divorced Charles. Both children went with Rachel. The second, the board voted to remove Charles from the chairman's position and elected Rachel as the new chairwoman. Charles had just stepped out of the FCD project site when he was told to pack up and leave. Furious, he made a huge scene at MD Group, eventually being hauled off and detained by the police. Seeing this, the officer reminded me that my time was up, time to assess my results. Chapter 22. When I returned to the book world. It was night. I found Santiago at the bar entrance. His hair was messy and he looked filthy. Trying to rush into the bar to find someone, the bartender promptly beat him up and threw him out. Ridiculously, Diego was inside drinking with the old gang members from his days in the mob. Seeing Santiago get beaten, they all cheered and felt relieved. Santiago glared at them viciously. "Is this how you treat your boss?" Diego spat at him. "You? What the hell gave you the right to be our boss? Back then, your position came from Sister Daisy leading the brothers through fire and knives. What does that have to do with you? You were just someone who ate the rice we cooked. Yet you dared treat Sister Daisy so badly. Daisy's disappearance has everything to do with you. How did you not get beaten to death?" Santiago listened dumbfounded. After a long while, he slowly lowered his head and walked away in silence. He muttered as he walked, "Daisy. Daisy." Hearing my name escape his lips made me feel sick in a strange way, and I couldn't help interrupting him. "Don't call me that." He flinched, then slowly turned around. His eyes lit up. "Daisy!" He rushed over as if to embrace me. I stepped back quickly. He froze for a moment, awkwardly withdrew his hand, but couldn't stop smiling. "This is great. It's wonderful. You returned safe and sound. God must have heard my prayers. As long as you come back, I don't care if I go to hell." "You won't go to hell." Hope returned to his eyes. "I knew it, Daisy. You love." I cut him off with a cold laugh. "You will have nothing. You will live alone and lonely in this world." In truth, Santiago was lucky. After 20 years of hurting me, his final price would be losing everything and living forever in longing and guilt for me. Compared to my father's end, it was much better. Compared to that fiancé judge of mine, the psychological damage was much smaller. I shot him a look, not without a little resentment. Too bad I couldn't grind him to dust. Santiago went pale. "Daisy, what do you mean? Are you leaving? Are you going to leave me again? Do you really not want me?" I wanted to spit some curses, but the officer was hidden beside me. Swearing wasn't helpful to getting a reduced sentence. I held it in and turned to leave. "Daisy!" Santiago cried out, his voice breaking with despair. "The scenario you assumed, that I'm the villain in the book, that's true, isn't it?" I paused, feeling the dead judge's accusing gaze, and awkwardly looked away. "You can guess." Then I walked off, refusing to look back no matter how Santiago called. I intended to make him spend the rest of his life guessing and regretting why he betrayed the vows he once made. Chapter 23. I brought the officer to meet Rachel. He didn't understand why Rachel was necessary. I only smiled without answering. Rachel was working in her office. When she worked, she didn't allow interruptions, so I waited in the reception room for 2 whole hours. When she finally saw me, she was both happy and afraid. Hesitant to step forward, I smiled and waved. "Come here, I won't hit you today." Her face flushed as she sat down in front of me, looking like she wanted to speak but couldn't. My hands itched at the sight. Fortunately, she remembered my lessons and spoke before I could act. "Don't even think about hitting me. I remember what you said, women must have their own voice. If they want to say something, they must say it, and not hesitate, letting others control them." I looked at her in surprise, while she blushed. "Daisy, Where have you been these past 6 months? I used every resource but couldn't find you. I gave a mysterious smile. I never left. She muttered, dissatisfied. You hid really well. So now you believe me, don't you? I changed the subject. Of course I do. Rachel's eyes shone with gratitude. Half a year ago, when Rachel was still in the hospital, I had Charles deliberately locked away, and Santiago was warned by me, so he didn't dare visit her either. The rest of the time, it was me who took care of Rachel. Of course, the nurses did the actual caretaking. I was mainly responsible for her education. Hands-on education. I told her that if she let go of that scumbag Charles, I would hand her all of Santiago's business operations. I also promised to help her pull Charles down, so that she could easily control MD Group with the resources I gave her. But why would I need all that? She asked. I told her to figure it out herself. Later, after more than a few bruises, she had learned several truths. Those who take favors are bound by them. Those who eat from others' hands can't stand tall. Men are unreliable. They can betray you anytime. Only money will never betray you. Marrying a rich man is worthless. Better to be rich yourself. Only with financial freedom can you truly control your own freedom. Back then, Rachel had been awakened by my beatings, but she still harbored suspicion toward me. Only now did she fully believe. But why are you helping me like this? There's no benefit to you at all. Rachel couldn't hold back her question. It was hard to explain, so I lied. I've made enough money. I don't want to work anymore. I want to travel the world. But I can't hand the money tree company over to others. Everyone else is too smart. Only you are easy enough to handle. You stay here and work for me properly. When I come back, remember to return it to me. The excuse was flimsy. Rachel seemed to understand something, and tears welled in her eyes. Will we meet again? Most likely not. If fate allows. I smiled at her, raised my hand, and gently patted her head in farewell. Chapter 24. After leaving the book world, the officer kept frowning. You did change the heroine Rachel's personality, but she was never a bad person to begin with. This doesn't prove your point that human nature is good even for a death row inmate. You're wasting your effort. But Santiago's reform completion rate is extremely high. It's enough to spare your life. I looked at the officer with a mysterious smile. What if I told you I've developed and tested a 100% guaranteed way to remove love brain, and also found the ultimate method for a woman to live a happy life, and I've won the Sociology Association's Best Paper Award for it? Would that count as redeeming my crimes? The officer paused slightly, his gaze at me growing complicated, even tinged with fear. Was this your ultimate motive for killing your father? I smiled shyly, revealing a trace of doctoral student innocence. My advisor said my thesis was good enough to win an award, but lacked experimental evidence. So you killed your father, took revenge on your scumbag fiancé, enraged him so he sentenced you to death. You entered the metaverse to reform the villain Santiago. You used Santiago, converting all his opportunities into your own assets. You won the trust of the gang underlings, the company staff, and the investors. And you brought down MD Group. All just to wait for this day, using all your resources to wake up the heroine Rachel and ensure she could live a happy life? I nodded. I'll take credit for reforming the villain, and I'll also take credit for removing love brain. That should reduce my sentence quite a bit, right? The officer asked back. How long do you want to serve? I blinked in surprise. Of course. However long I'm sentenced. That's how long I'll serve. He closed his eyes briefly, as though exasperated. Stop pretending. I raised an eyebrow. Being seen through didn't annoy me. I smiled and said, 3 years then. After all, I graduate in 3 years, and I still have many papers to write. Reduce it to 3 years. The officer drew in a sharp breath. Today his expression had collapsed more times than in his entire life combined. Still unwilling to give up, he asked, what if Rachel hadn't changed her personality and fate? Normally she'd end up despised by Charles, turning into a resentful woman, living bitterly for the rest of her life. I asked back, and who was it who put her in a position to be humiliated from the start? Just like the worldviews of those book worlds, who set them up that way. The officer stayed silent for a long time, his lips trembling before he finally said, You mean? I nodded. Yes, I would rewrite the problem at its root. No matter which world. I placed my index finger to my lips. Shoo. You must keep this secret. After all, the show is only just beginning. Story 2. During Joel's lowest time, I stayed by his side as his fiancée, without a single complaint. When he rebuilt the company and regained control, he decided to marry his first love. He indulged his first love in taking everything from me. I became a complete joke, but I neither cried nor made a fuss. I stepped aside quietly, because, with the breakup fee, I could finally afford the treatment my childhood friend needed. Chapter 1. I went to Joel's office to deliver some documents. Inside, there were some suggestive sounds. It was Camila. These days, Joel had been tangled up with her constantly. Hearing my footsteps, Camila cooed to Joel, "Your fiancé is here. Should we pause? Let her wait a while." The noises grew more suggestive, painting an image no one needed. After a while, Joel came out. His clothes were disheveled, and there was a faint red mark on his neck. "What is it?" he asked. He was tall, and when he looked down at me, his impatience was evident. "Documents. Sign." I kept it short. He picked up the pen, writing quickly, as if eager to get rid of me. But just when I was about to leave, he called out to me, "Ruby, there's something I need you to handle." "What is it?" "Camila and I were photographed by the media yesterday. Make sure they don't publish it." "Why?" I asked mockingly. "Isn't what they captured the truth? We haven't broken up yet. Camila will be seen as the third party, and it would be bad for her career." Joel's face was handsome like a god's. Hearing such awful words from his mouth, they almost seemed like charity. I stood there, unmoving for a long time. His patience ran out, and he spoke with a threatening tone. "You will take care of it, right?" I smiled faintly. "Of course." Chapter 2. I told my subordinates to suppress the scandal. Everyone looked at me oddly. Well, it was no secret around the company about the three of us. 5 years ago, Joel was just starting out, wanting to take over the family's entertainment company. But he was set up, stripped of his power by the board, and lost everything miserably. He was living in despair. And then he met me. I stayed by his side during his lowest point. I helped him rise again and take back control. Once, Joel was drunk and wouldn't let go of my hand. He said, "My life belongs to Ruby. Without her, I'd have jumped off the top of the company building long ago." "Ruby, my dear Ruby, let's get married, okay? Please, marry me." With everyone around cheering, I gently nodded. "Okay." Later, I found out that the very night he confessed to me, Joel had also messaged Camila, "Interested in signing with J Entertainment? The top spot is always yours." Camila agreed. Turns out, she and Joel had been involved even before she debuted. She was Joel's unattainable desire, the one he could never forget. The day they completed the signing, Joel was so excited that he couldn't sleep all night. Chapter 3. Joel cared deeply about Camila. He cared too much. When Camila was filming, he always visited the set. Over time, rumors about them spread around the crew. So Joel brought me along. He said, "Camila's reputation can't be tarnished. You need to clear it up." I asked, "How?" "Just say that the three of us were together last night." "But last night, I wasn't even there." Joel didn't look at me at all. His attention was completely on his phone. He was scrolling through Camila's new photos, saving each one. That day, there was a water scene. The weather was cold, and the water was freezing. So Camila refused to go in. She pouted at Joel. "I'll catch a cold." "You don't want me to catch a cold, do you?" Of course. Joel didn't. He ordered the director to find a body double. However, the double wasn't available that day, as they were at a loss. Camila pointed to me. "Miss Ruby can do it. We're about the same height and build. Only the back will be visible. It won't be noticeable." Joel hesitated at first, but he realized no one fit the role better than me. "Ruby," I interrupted him. "Joel, I told you this morning. I'm on my period." He froze. Camila chided me. "So what if you're on your period? Foreigners drink ice water during their period, and nothing happens." "Ruby, you work for the company. Stop being so fussy." The tone she used, it was as if she was already the boss's wife. I looked at Joel calmly. He knew very well that during my period, I couldn't handle anything cold, it would leave me in excruciating pain. But after a long while, he still gave up on me. Ruby, I need you to do this. Chapter 4. In the end, I didn't get into the water that day. The director couldn't take it anymore and borrowed a professional extra from another set. But from that day on, Joel began to take back most of my authority in the company. The person who could freely come and go from his office was no longer me, it was Camila. Now, he openly flirted with Camila, and I was still cleaning up after him. When I went to the pantry, I heard some colleagues gathered inside, gossiping. Why doesn't Ruby do anything? I couldn't stand this kind of humiliation if it were me. She's love blind. I guess she loves Joel so much. There's nothing she wouldn't put up with. Standing outside, I found myself smiling instinctively. True, there's nothing I can't endure. It won't take much longer. Sam's illness is almost cured. The boy who spent all his fortune, saved me again and again, and nearly lost his own life for me. He's about to wake up. Chapter 5. There was a gathering in the evening. I was late. Joel had already had a few rounds, and Camila sat next to him, dressed provocatively. The two of them lost a game, and amidst everyone's teasing, they were supposed to do some intimate actions. Someone said, "Wouldn't this be bad if Ruby found out?" Joel's face darkened immediately. Why mention her? I paused outside the door, listening with interest. Brother Joel, what's the deal with you and Ruby anyway? What deal? I never intended to marry her. Really? Joel sneered. Ruby is only good for her looks. Her personality is dull and boring. I got tired of her a long time ago. Camila beside him couldn't hide her smug expression. In that case, a rich kid piped up. I think I'll pursue Ruby then. I quite like her type. Joel paused for a moment. Then his eyes flared with anger, as if about to explode. Pursue my ass. You dare touch Ruby, and I'll make sure you never return to Beijing. The rich kid gave a nervous laugh. I thought you said you were tired of her. I haven't broken up yet. Even if I'm tired, it won't be your turn. Still not broken up? Brother Joel, are you reluctant? Bullshit. I'm not reluctant. Joel's cold gaze swept across the room. She's like chewing gum, impossible to shake off. Someone tried to mediate. Yeah, Ruby simply can't live without Brother Joel. Who knows? She might start crying and throwing tantrums. The tension in the room eased somewhat. I finally opened the door and entered. I pretended I had just arrived, laughing and chatting with friends, but deliberately ignoring Joel. Joel, clearly in a bad mood, said, "Ruby, come over here." I acted as though I hadn't heard, and sat beside the rich kid instead. Joel's face turned instantly dark. "Ruby, if you don't come here, then we're done." The room fell silent. It seemed like everyone was waiting for me to panic, to plead, but I blinked twice, and calmly said, "All right." Chapter 6. The night Joel and I broke up. I heard that after I left. He threw a massive tantrum, nearly trashing the entire private room, but Joel still thought I was just acting out, that I'd come around eventually. He waited and waited, but what he got was my resignation letter. Joel began to panic. He searched for me everywhere, even asked people to find out where I was. He said he never wanted to break up. He also said Camila was just someone he had brought in to play along, that nothing ever happened between them. Half of the huge J Entertainment company was built by me. When I suddenly left, the company fell into chaos. Joel was on the verge of collapse. But no matter what he did, he couldn't find me. I took all my savings and vanished from the world. Until 4 months later, I made headlines in every major media outlet. Former top star Sam awakens from his illness. Ruby overjoyed to tears. In the photo, I had tears in my eyes, looking at Sam with joy. The photo went viral, being shared and discussed by many. Years ago, Sam was the hottest top star in the entertainment industry, but he had to retire after being severely injured while saving someone, falling into a coma. Only then did Joel learn. First, Sam and I were childhood sweethearts. Second, the person Sam saved back then was me. And most importantly, I never loved Joel. All these years, I tolerated him and complied with him, only for Sam's medical expenses. It's said that the day Joel saw the news, he completely lost his mind. Chapter 7. My past with Sam was simple, yet not so simple. We met in an orphanage and grew up together. When I was 7, I was adopted by a wealthy couple. My adoptive parents weren't particularly kind to me, but at least they were wealthy, and I never lacked food or clothes. Sam wasn't as fortunate. He had delicate, feminine features, with striking and alluring looks since childhood, earning him the nickname Male Vixen. But he hated that nickname. Whenever other children called him that, he'd rush at them, fighting. The parents who saw it would shake their heads in disapproval. And so, Sam became an unwanted child. During his teenage years, Sam grew even more rebellious. Whenever someone made fun of his appearance, he'd go mad, fighting fiercely. In the first year of middle school, Sam fought with the principal's son. During Monday's flag-raising ceremony, he was publicly reprimanded. The principal demanded an apology from him. Sam took the microphone, and his lips curved upward. "Your son asked me how much I cost for a night. If he could buy me, I reasonably suspect that he learned this from his father. Maybe the father has this hobby. Like father, like son, right? Principal?" The entire school was in an uproar. The principal, enraged, threw a cup at him, breaking Sam's forehead. Blood trickled down his face. Yet he stood there, unmoved, his smile even colder, more enchanting, under the crimson stain, like a deity bored with humanity. Surprisingly, though, the next day, Sam actually went and apologized to the principal. He even wrote a 10,000-word self-reflection, pleading tearfully for the school to let him stay, as if the person who provoked everyone the day before wasn't him. No one knew what had happened. Only I knew. That day, amidst the chaos of the flag-raising ceremony, I grabbed Sam's hand and pulled him out of the crowd. Chapter 8. My adoptive parents forbade me from interacting with friends from the orphanage. Because of this, Sam and I lost contact for many years. Unexpectedly, we reunited in this way, and Sam was genuinely happy. I told him, no matter what happened, he couldn't drop out of school. Studying was our only weapon at the moment. Only by holding on to this weapon could we reclaim our lost dignity. Sam listened to me. From that day on, it was as if he had become a different person. First, he went around pleading with everyone to let him stay in school. Then, he stopped fighting, focused on studying, and his grades quickly became the best in class. At school, we pretended not to know each other. Even if we crossed paths, we would just brush past one another, but nobody knew. Every day after the evening study session, Sam would silently follow me. After walking me home, he would stand under my bedroom window, smoking without a word, staying with me until I fell asleep. The orphanage didn't have much money, and Sam was often hungry, so I shared half of my pocket money with him, just so he wouldn't go hungry. In that damp, sweltering period of youth, we got through it together like this. After the high school entrance exam, the dean was arrested. The reason was molesting a minor. The moment he was taken away, I stood behind the crowd and smiled at him quietly, because the victim was me, and it was me who deliberately set the trap for him. Chapter 9. This can't really be blamed on me. I just wanted to talk to the director about my options for school, and it just so happened that I wore a short skirt. Why the police? Well, what's wrong with a minor calling the police for protection in advance? If the director were an upright person, I wouldn't have been able to lure him in, no matter what I did. This case made quite a stir. When I gave my testimony, I shed tears, appearing pitiful. Everyone sympathized with me. Moreover, I was top of my class, an obedient and diligent student. Eventually, the director couldn't withstand the public opinion and jumped off a building in a failed suicide attempt, ending up paralyzed. His son's bullying at school was also exposed, and no high school wanted to accept him. This was the first trap I set up, at 15 years old, and I won completely. The only negative outcome was that I earned a few derogatory names. Some people called me vile, saying I was promiscuous at a young age. Even my adoptive parents were disappointed in me, but I didn't care at all. It was around that time that I realized I was different from other girls. Purity, reputation, all that nonsense, it meant nothing to me. The only thing that mattered to me was winning. Winning excited me. It made me tremble. I would do whatever it took to win. Later on, I was admitted to a prestigious university. Sam, with his godlike looks, debuted as an entertainer. He skyrocketed to fame and became incredibly popular. But no one knew that the refined, elegant persona he displayed in front of the camera was crafted by me. Even his agency had no idea I existed. We were the perfect allies. Until 5 years ago, my adoptive parents made bad investments and ended up deep in debt. They sold me to a Hong Kong boss to pay off their debts. That's when I realized that for all those years they raised me, they weren't affectionate at all but demanded that I be beautiful, have a great figure, and excel in my studies, all just so they could sell me for a high price. When Sam found out, he used all his savings since debuting to buy my freedom. That was the first time Sam saved me. Chapter 10. The second time Sam saved me. It was from a sudden, violent disaster. Someone tried to run me over with a car. That day, it was snowing heavily, and I met up with Sam. Because of his status, he couldn't go to crowded places. As I crossed the street, a car suddenly sped toward me. Sam rushed over and pushed me out of the way, falling into a pool of blood himself. The vehicle immediately fled the scene. That road hadn't yet been equipped with surveillance cameras. This accident ended Sam's illustrious career. He lay in a hospital bed, needing expensive ongoing treatment. But Sam had no money. He'd spent it all to redeem me. His management company gave up on him, citing force majeure as the reason to terminate his contract. The entertainment industry had no shortage of talent, and the world slowly forgot about him. But I didn't. I met Joel and helped him restructure his company, partly to fund Sam's treatment, partly to use the influence of J Entertainment to uncover the truth behind the accident. Later, Joel confessed his feelings for me. I knew very well that he was attracted by my capabilities and wanted to keep me around, always working for him, and I was the same. I needed the status of his fiancée to do more things. So, a relationship of mutual benefit began. You think I ended things because I couldn't tolerate Joel's cheating? No, it was only because I discovered that the accident seemed to be linked to people close to Joel. The memory ends there. A microphone is extended in front of me. Today marks the 2nd month of Sam's recovery. He cannot appear on camera, so I'm accepting interviews on his behalf. A reporter suddenly asks, "Miss Ruby, you were once Joel's fiancée, but now you're by Sam's side. Do you still love him?" Looking up, I suddenly see Joel, whom I haven't seen for 6 months, standing at the back of the crowd. His eyes are red, staring at me. Chapter 11. That question should be asked of Joel. I spoke softly. When he stayed overnight at the set with Camila, did he love me? When he flirted with Camila at the office, did he love me? When he secretly dated Camila, yet asked me to lie to the public and clear their names, did he love me? The reporters were stunned, and the entire venue fell silent. I showed a relieved smile. Anyway, I can't love him anymore. Joel's gaze wavered, and he looked devastated. After the interview, he stopped me backstage. After half a year, Joel looked even more haggard than I had imagined. He said, "I finally found you, Ruby." I nodded politely. Distant. "Hello, Joel." That unfamiliar greeting made him freeze for a moment. "Ruby, are you still angry?" "No." "Then listen to me explain. Nothing ever happened between Camila and me. She was someone I hired just for a show." "Oh, a show?" Joel's eyes darkened. "A show performed just for you." Chapter 12. Joel's next words were beyond my expectations. To put it simply, Camila was brought in by him specifically to provoke me. Because I was too gentle, too calm. I never cared about his whereabouts. When he stayed out all night, I didn't ask questions. When the media fabricated rumors about him, I didn't react. I was perfect. Like a robot girlfriend. Joel was uneasy. His intuition told him that I didn't love him. He repeatedly asked me, "Ruby, do you love me?" And each time I gave him the standard answer, "Of course. I love you." But when I said those 3 words, even the curve of my smile didn't change. Joel was lost. So he had a crazy idea. He wanted to see me get jealous. He brought in Camila, deliberately acting flirtatiously in front of me. But what he never expected, I left. Completely. Joel's voice turned hoarse and strained. Ruby, I've already kicked Camila out. No one can shake your place. Come back, please? I remained silent. Joel grew anxious. I like you. I really like you. I don't want to lose you. I interrupted. What about Camila? What did she say? Don't worry. Camila's a good person. When I first approached her, I made it very clear. A good person. Really? I smiled, slowly unlocking my phone. I had screenshotted Camila's old social media post. In the photo, Joel was asleep. She was leaning against his chest. An intimate pose. The caption read, "Wasn't feeling well during filming today. But someone came to keep me company. All these years. And still just a call away." That post was probably set to visible to Ruby only. Because Joel, seeing it now, was utterly stunned. How could she? I said. Joel, that's your dear Camila. Chapter 13. Because of my interview, Camila's reputation took a nosedive. Soon after, a video surfaced. The video seemed to be recent. Joel and Camila were arguing. What did we agree on back then? Joel questioned her. I only asked you to act along, not to really provoke her. Posting on social media visible only to Ruby. How could you be so manipulative? Camila spoke with a sobbing voice. I just wanted it to seem real. Your real meant taking intimate pictures while I was asleep and sending them to my fiancé? Camila stammered for a long time before she finally gave up and lashed out. What's so great about Ruby? Her figure's average. And she's not as pretty as me. What exactly do you like about her? What I like doesn't need to be explained to you. But she's already gone. Why can't you just look back at me? Didn't you like me the most before? I'm standing right here in front of you. Why won't you see me? Joel replied coldly. It's too late. Camila was unwilling. Breaking into tears, Joel grabbed his jacket to leave, but she blocked him once again. Joel, stay with me tonight, please. This action completely exhausted Joel's last ounce of patience. He violently shook her off, accidentally pushing Camila to the ground. Yet he didn't look back, showing no remorse at all. When the video was released, it caused an uproar. A foolish man pretending to cheat, and a mistress who wanted to make it real. In the end, they shot themselves in the foot. How entertaining. The key point was that Camila had always maintained a pure image, and this whole drama shattered that illusion. Public opinion swung completely in my favor. Camila couldn't sit still any longer. One morning, I was awakened by the sound of my phone ringing. A friend told me that Camila had put me on the trending list. She exposed all my past secrets. Ruby? She was kept by a big shot from Hong Kong. You know how dirty things can get in Hong Kong circles, right? On camera, Camila spoke with a playful smirk. Chapter 14. I watched her performance with interest. Camila wanted to drag me down with her, to go down in flames together. Only she didn't know yet. Her good days were numbered. I suddenly remembered the day Camila signed her contract with the company. It was my first time meeting her, yet she looked at me as if she already knew me, scrutinizing me from head to toe. I really didn't expect to see you here. The words were strange. I thought about it for a long time, and couldn't recall where I had seen her before. But recently, I've had a clue. Let her be arrogant a little while longer. Once I have all the evidence, I'll send her straight to jail. Lost in thought, my friend sent me a message. Today is Sam's first variety show appearance after his comeback. Right? Me? Yes. Why? The guest is Camila. Me? Not long ago, Sam announced his return to showbiz. He no longer had a management company, so I took full responsibility for arranging all his engagements. When we accepted this variety show, the production team hadn't mentioned that the guest would be Camila. What a coincidence. I rushed to the recording studio, afraid Sam might be bullied, but I had worried too much. Camila froze the moment she saw him, even forgetting the presence of the cameras. The other guests had a similar reaction. Even after all these years of illness, Sam's striking beauty was still unmatched in the entertainment industry. This illness had only added a kind of fragile allure to him. When he doesn't smile, He looks like a god, but when he does, it's as if a seductive ghost has taken over. The camera crew kept circling around him. During the break, Camila spoke to him. Sam lowered his gaze to look at her, a casual smile on his lips. Camila blushed, but she didn't notice the coldness hidden deep in his eyes. After filming, I went backstage to pick Sam up. I happened to catch sight of Camila in there. I've always heard about your godly looks, and seeing you today, it's truly well-deserved. Thank you, Senior. Are you close to Ruby? What are you trying to say? Sam blinked, his expression enchanting. Camila gathered her courage and spoke. Have you seen the news? Ruby's passed. It's dirty. I mean no harm. Just don't want to see someone as great as you be deceived. Consider this a friendly warning. Are you referring to Ruby being kept by a big shot? Camila nodded. Yes, that's it. I wasn't planning on revealing it. But seeing men like you and Mr. Joel fooled by her, I felt I had to speak up. Oh, well, how considerate of you. Sam smiled at her. He lifted his hand, his fingers brushing against Camila's chin. Camila shivered shyly. Senior, it's quite crowded here. Maybe we should go somewhere. Her eyes were filled with expectation. However, the next second, Sam grabbed her throat, squeezing tightly. Chapter 15. First, Ruby's past. I not only know all about it, I was a part of it. Second, Ruby was someone I personally redeemed. Third, if you try this again, I'll break your neck. Camila struggled in pain. Her face flushed. Sam let go only after he had enjoyed the sight long enough. She coughed uncontrollably, looking at Sam now with fear instead of admiration. You're probably thinking about exposing this to the media, right? Sam's voice was so gentle, as if he were merely asking her what she wanted for dinner. Go ahead. Say whatever you want. But you should know, someone who has come back from the gates of hell fears nothing. Camila was horrified. Then Sam saw me. He smiled his beautiful smile. Ruby, let's go. I reached out my hand to him. Wait a second. Sam suddenly took out a wet wipe, cleaning his hands repeatedly. I just touched something dirty. I couldn't help but laugh. Behind us, Camila stared at me with hatred, but her nightmare wasn't over yet. As Sam and I stepped outside, a group of executives from J Entertainment approached. They headed straight for Camila, pulling out a stack of documents. Miss, the company has decided to terminate your contract. Chapter 16. I guessed that after seeing the exposure, Joel went to investigate my past. Then he found out that my life hadn't been great. My adoptive parents loved corporal punishment. If I didn't do well on exams, they beat me. If I had pimples, they beat me. After they went bankrupt, I was sold off to pay their debts. For over a decade, they never treated me like family. Joel probably found this out too. He must have also learned how Sam spent all his money and knelt before that powerful man just to rescue me. Sam never looked down on me. That's something Joel can never match. He wanted to make it up to me, and the most direct way was to eliminate the person who exposed my past. Camila's contract termination became a huge scandal, trending for days. But Camila soon found herself a new big shot. She continued to flaunt herself, seemingly unaffected. However, at that moment, I saw a photo of Camila getting cozy in a private car with the big shot. That car caught my attention. Most celebrities use vans, but this was the first time I'd seen Camila with a private car. No, the second time, because the first time was years ago when it tried to run me down. Chapter 17. On the day of the car accident, it was snowing heavily, and visibility was poor. The only thing I remembered was the car model. A few years ago, using the influence of my company, I secretly started investigating. Eventually, a lot of evidence pointed to Camila. She was the most likely culprit, but the evidence was insufficient, especially when it came to motive. I had never met her before, so why would she want to harm me? When Joel decided to sign her to the company, I wasn't angry. Instead, I thought my chance had come. When Camila joined the company, she wanted to treat the executives to dinner. That night, I pretended to be drunk. Camila asked her assistant to take me home. Once again, I took a gamble and got into their car. I had a knife hidden in my bag for self-defense, And I also wore a mini camera. If anything happened, I'd have evidence. Unexpectedly, the assistant only asked me a few questions. Where did you spend Chinese New Year 5 years ago? On the second day of New Year, when the snow was heaviest. Did you go anywhere? Did anything unusual happen? I acted tipsy. How could I remember? With all the company stuff. I can't even remember what I ate the day before. Really can't remember? The assistant's eyes flickered. I shook my head. Come on, isn't every New Year the same? It feels less festive each year. Saying this, I tilted my head and pretended to fall asleep. The assistant quietly sent a message to Camila, but he didn't know. I squinted my eyes, observing everything. From that day forward, I was more cautious. What exactly happened on the second day of Chinese New Year 5 years ago? What did I miss? Unexpectedly, I really found something. An old man was dragged to death by a vehicle. The driver was never found, and it became an unsolved case. I remember the intersection where the accident happened. I still remember that the snow was so heavy that day, and there were no pedestrians on the street. Except for me, there was only one old man, collecting parking fees. The old man was wearing tattered clothes and was arguing with the driver. I glanced at them at the time but didn't pay much attention. Probably after I turned into a small alley, Camila, the driver, lost her patience and stepped on the gas. The old man's clothing got caught on the car, and he was dragged for hundreds of meters. By the time people found the old man's body, frozen and bled out, the snow had already covered all the tire tracks. The police investigation had no leads because the surveillance camera hadn't captured anything. The old man had no children, no relatives, and no one to seek justice for him. The matter ended just like that. And unknowingly, I became the only witness. Camila, fearing her future would be ruined, decided to silence me. But she didn't know that. My back was turned at the time, and I had earphones in. I hadn't witnessed her crime. 2 weeks later, on another snowy day, she tried the same trick. But Sam, who rushed out, messed up her plans. This failure made her afraid to act again. Plus, since I never went to the police, she guessed I hadn't seen the crime scene. Camila thought she had escaped, but she never imagined that justice would come for her in the end. On the day after Camila happily announced her endorsement, I handed all the evidence over to the police. The entire internet was in an uproar. Chapter 18. After the police got involved, everything became much simpler. Oh, and to prevent Camila from using her connections to escape while contacting the police, I also posted all the evidence online, with countless eyes watching. No one dared help her this time. After a thorough investigation, the police quickly issued a statement. The death of the old man dragged by the car, and Sam almost losing his life. Both incidents were caused by Camila. The first was accidental manslaughter. The second was premeditated. Camila was arrested. She confessed to everything. It turned out that after the first incident, Camila started looking for me. She followed me for a long time and figured out my daily routine. Every day, I walked through a small path with no surveillance cameras. She ultimately chose that spot to carry out her plan, but she never expected that I wasn't alone. Sam, wearing a mask and a hat, always stood not too far away, silently watching me. A popular rising star turned into a murderer. There was nothing more shocking than that. Camila cried bitterly, claiming that she was young and didn't understand the seriousness of her actions when she dragged the old man with her car. She said she didn't know he was caught in her vehicle, that it was purely accidental. Instead of sympathy, her statement was met with even harsher criticism. The netizens scolded her, saying she was unrepentant and still lying to this day. During those years, Sam's life was put on hold. The old man, who had no relatives and only wanted to collect 6 yuan to buy a bowl of noodles, she will never be able to repay him in this lifetime. Chapter 19. After Camila was imprisoned, my life returned to calm. Sam gained followers faster than before the accident. We established a personal studio and quickly gained a foothold in the entertainment industry. Joel came to find me again. His company had lost its main star, and nearly a year's investment went down the drain. Joel was not doing well. Once the charming young man, he had now become downcast. The day he came to see me, it happened to be raining. He stared at the raindrops on the window, Lost in thought, the light rain moistens everything silently. I said, "What?" Joel turned around, his eyes forlorn. If we hadn't broken up, it would be our wedding now. Indeed, Joel once said he wanted to complete the wedding in the summer. Too bad we never made it to that day. You'll meet someone more suitable. I wish you all the best, I said politely. I used to think that too, but... He gave a bitter smile. But after a year since we broke up, I can't move on. I suffer from insomnia, and every time I close my eyes, all I see is you. The doctor gave me medication, but it didn't work. Ruby, do you know? I could only fall asleep by listening to old meeting recordings, listening to your voice. I nodded, giving the most reasonable advice. Then maybe you should change your doctor. Ruby, do you really not forgive me? It's not about forgiveness. It's just that I don't love you. Joel's eyes reddened. He dropped to his knees in front of me. Ruby, please, give me another chance. I looked at him with pity, then slowly raised my hand. The diamond ring on my ring finger gleamed. I'm engaged. Joel. Joel's last hope was shattered by my words. Chapter 20. Joel's face turned pale instantly. Sam confessed to me, and I accepted. I gently touched the ring. We're planning to go public the day after tomorrow. You can't do this. Joel broke down. Ruby, you're my fiancé. We agreed, didn't we? We would build J Entertainment together and have a daughter, raise her to be a CEO. How can you just... Joel, get a grip. I gently reminded him. You were the one who proposed breaking up. Remember? Joel froze, stumbling backward. When I turned to leave, Joel reached out desperately, trying to grab me, but he was interrupted by Sam, who rushed over. Sam stood protectively in front of me. Joel, please stop bothering my fiancé. Yours? These past years, it was me taking care of her. Well, thank you for taking care of Ruby for me, but there's no need for that anymore. Joel, enraged, punched the glass window. Blood dripped from his fist. Ruby loves me. She's just mad at me. She'll come back eventually. Joel. Sam interrupted. Has Ruby ever truly cared for you? I mean, genuinely cared? His smile was devilish, his tone calm. When I was a kid, I had a bad temper and was often punished by the director. Left without food. It was Ruby who saved a bit of bread for me each day. After we started school, I was poor, always hungry. And Ruby took the risk of being beaten by her foster parents just to share her allowance with me. I was bullied by teachers and classmates, and I fell into depression. It was Ruby who helped me out, encouraged me to keep going, and even put herself in danger to get back at those who hurt me. Sam paused before continuing. Because of her, I made it to today. Oh, and do you know what subject Ruby wanted to study? He smiled faintly. She loved biology, but she was afraid that if I entered the entertainment industry, I'd get bullied. So she changed her major to film and enrolled in the drama program instead. Sam lit a cigarette, but then he suddenly remembered that I didn't like the smell of smoke, and immediately put it out. Ruby never says she loves me, but for over 20 years, she's never left me. Chapter 21. Sam stared at me, unmoving. I stared back at him. At this moment, I finally understood my own feelings. I am not a good person, nor do I love anyone. For my goals, I can use any means necessary. But Sam is different. I want to live and die alongside him, because he has already transcended love, family, and friendship. He is an inseparable part of my life. That night, I pinned Sam beneath me. I stroked his face, praising him. This face is just too beautiful. Sam never liked it when people called him beautiful. All those childhood fights, they all started because of that word. But I am different. No matter what I say, he always accepts it willingly. Ruby, he held me, letting me do whatever I wanted. The corners of his eyes flushed red, vividly seductive. I said, I avenged you again. Are you happy? Sam smiled. But it's not over yet, is it? Ruby, you want much more than this. I paused, then sighed. You really know me too well. Yes, it's not over. My ultimate goal was never just to get rid of Camila. It was J Entertainment. This was my real purpose for deliberately approaching Joel. I want to replace him. Stand at the pinnacle of the industry. I want this arrogant industry to bow down, to heed my command. Joel's company was built by my hands, with much of my effort, and my traps. I know exactly where the weaknesses are, where it can be brought down in one strike. Now, it's time to devour it. Rolling over, Sam lowered his head and kissed me. Go make your mark, Ruby. His kisses were gentle, like the waves. I am your most loyal subordinate. Please, use me to your heart's content. Chapter 22. J Entertainment Company started to crumble. The building was about to fall, collapsing from within. First, it was the finance department. When Joel was selecting the financial personnel, he asked me how they were. I told him they were fine, but in reality, these people were smart but greedy, and in the long run, they were a risk. Perfect for my plan. Sure enough, the financial scandal broke out. Afterward, I waited some time. J Entertainment's problems kept emerging one after another. The company's reputation plummeted within the industry, and many directors strategically withdrew. Joel was overwhelmed, and the company was on the verge of collapse. He struggled for 2 months before he finally found me. When Joel found me, he had lost a lot of weight. Looking worn and haggard, he begged me for help. I got straight to the point. I want the shares you hold. His eyes trembled. But if you can't make this decision, then go back and face it alone. I closed the door. Sam was outside, standing guard over Joel. The two were silent. After a long while, Sam asked him, "Do you know why I am better than you?" Joel looked up at him. Sam replied, "I'm more obedient." Joel stared blankly, as if he understood, but also as if he didn't. Sam continued, "In this life, besides Ruby herself, I have nothing else I want. Even this worthless life of mine is dispensable. That's why I'll follow her in whatever she does and help her reach the top." Sam closed his eyes. The last sentence was something Joel never expected. Because once we stand at the top, no one will dare to bully us again. At that moment, I stood on the other side of the door, back to back with Sam. It felt like being 6 years old again. He was locked in the dark room, and just like that, separated by a door, we relied on each other amid the vast currents of life. Chapter 23. In the end, I took action. Joel stepped back to assist me. In 5 months, J Entertainment Company underwent a complete overhaul, and I rebuilt an entirely new system. I held the most shares and naturally became the head of the board. Sam's personal studio was affiliated with J Entertainment Company. He became my unique top-tier artist and the company's crown jewel. However, some senior executives opposed my decision to rename the company. There was a female executive who remained loyal to Joel's family and refused to accept me, an outsider. As the chairman of the board, she said I rose to power by selling my beauty. I wasn't angry at all. The workplace is often unfair to women, and I am willing to treat capable women like her with kindness. I invited her to my office and explained the company structure and my plans to her. The more she listened, the quieter she became. "Did you do all this?" "Yes." "What do you think? You're a film major. How do you know how to run a company?" "I learned from my foster parents when I was young, and after being sold to Hong Kong, I also learned from the bosses for a while. By the way, the company's expansion into the Hong Kong market is also thanks to that experience. You were kept as a mistress, and you still managed to learn things?" I shrugged. "That's probably why I am standing here today. Looks are indeed important, but in the face of real strength, beauty is fragile. Love and appearance can betray you, but capability never will. I've never wanted to be the lady of the company." I smiled, pointing upward. "I only want to be the boss." The female executive was silent for a long time before finally asking me a question. "Equal pay for equal work between male and female employees. Can you really do it? Aren't we already doing it?" Later, on the day we went public, she stood right beside me. She became, apart from Sam, another close confidant of mine. As for Joel, he got sick. Joel was diagnosed with severe depression. He decided to give up his role in the company and go abroad, to heal and relax. Back then, I helped transform him from a spoiled young master into a chairman. And now, I turned him back into that young master. The day he left, it was said he waited at the airport until the last moment. I never showed up. Before boarding, a light summer rain began to fall from the sky. He said, "Ruby came to see me off." The colleague sending him off asked, "What?" He looked out the window, silent for a long time. Later, I accidentally saw a photo from that day. There was a blessing charm I gave him when we first got together still hanging from Joel's backpack. Chapter 24. In the third year after the company went public, business continued to grow steadily. Sam became an unshakable milestone, a top-tier celebrity. We held our wedding. Neither of us had family, only friends. Under the blessings of our friends, Sam took my hand. He cried, "Ruby, I have a family now, don't I?" I said, "I've always been your family." I hugged him, leaning close to his ear. "Sam, I love you." We both understood the weight of those 3 words. I've said I love you countless times to others, without changing my expression, nonchalantly, but none of those times were like today. These words are heavy, crossing half a lifetime, merging into my bones. After all the ups and downs, I finally said them out loud. Before, nothing could separate us, and from now on, nothing ever will.